So ASB is doing a lot this year, and I just wrote down so I'd collect my thoughts. We actually have a calendar on the other side of this wall of everything that we're working on. But to let you guys know, yesterday we had our first club rush of the year. A lot of students came. It was in the forum. We had an array of clubs: Interact Club, the Legion Gazette. You could find the Legion Gazette. I heard something about it earlier on Weebly.com. And that's where it's accessed normally. We've been sending it out through Echo announcements also to just go from Weebly.com, from Echo to Weebly.com. And then we have a dance club, and we also have a dance team available. Today, we have our second Legionnaire Games. Legionnaire Games is an advisory competition to win a pizza party, or now any party since I've negotiated. We also have a movie night scheduled after school today. We're going to be watching World War Z and Beetlejuice. Entry's free. We'll just be selling food, and so if your child would like to buy some concessions, he's able. We have our October dance on the 26th of this month. The theme is Fright Night. And within the same week, we have a lunchtime activity during lunch on Thursday and a Spirit Week that students, if they participate in, they can win a free dance ticket. Coming up, or currently in the works, we're thinking of getting an official mascot. We do have the mascot, but we're thinking of getting a mascot costume. I know students have been saying it'd make it feel like there's more of a high school atmosphere if they have a mascot. So we have a Monday meeting with Dr. Fowler about what we'd like the mascot to look like and when we'd like to purchase it. We've been considering entering in the Christmas parade this year. I remember the very first year of Bonsall High School, I believe, or was it the second year, there was a Christmas parade, and since then we haven't moved forward with that. So we're been thinking of going in this year, considering ASB has the funds to make a very cute float. We're also considering a co-ed lock-in sometime before Christmas break. We would need a lot of chaperones for that because we want to make sure students are monitored and we have all of the support we need. So if you can keep that in mind, we'll come to you again, I think, next month if it's something we move forward with, and I'll have more information on that.
Can you explain what that is?
A lock-in, I know we did that for the GOCC, and the boys did one, the girls only confidence conference, and the boys did one with games. And it's just they'd stay overnight at school. There was food provided. They had activities. I went to the girls' one. We did a vision board. It was really fun. We also played hide and seek in the dark and played spooky music over the intercom. The boys played video games down. I think in this room specifically, they brought their monitors and their game consoles. And they played video games for a while. I don't know what else happened there. I know it was a senior project for one of the seniors last year, and so he was able to move forward with that. And that's what consists of last year's. This year, it'll probably be, activities will still be there. It'll just have both genders, and we'll have to schedule things a lot more specifically. I think November, we'll have more information on that, whether or not we move forward. It's currently in the works. We have a morning tea and coffee starting Wednesday for students if they'd like to purchase a tea in the morning or a nice black coffee throughout the day. And we also have an ASB Instagram account. Official BHS _ASB. This is our final and official ASB account. Throughout the years, it's infuriated me that we've lost the password, but this time we have it written down. I refuse to let this get lost. This is our official account.
What's it called?
Official BHS _ASB. And then we have Director of Recognition working on a weekly recognition system, where a student that teachers feel as though is doing well academically or is a kind student.
Can you repeat that?
A weekly recognition from our Director of Recognition for students and Legionnaires who have just shown that they follow our norms very well and they're very kind students and they're very smart students. And they would earn candy and then get a certificate and they'd be announced over the announcements. And kids love candy. So who wouldn't want to be a good kid for candy? And are there any questions? Yes.
Can you put all this stuff on the website? Because
Yes.
Because I know you said you sent it out through Echo announcements. As a parent, I don't get those announcements. It only goes to the student.
Yeah, I've been thinking from this meeting of setting up an ASB calendar on the website specifically. And so it'd be a monthly update calendar for parents to be able to look at. And then maybe we could put an ASB section to link towards the ASB class. So you can contact Mr. Van Hoosier.
Like a one-stop shop, so I don't have to have.
And we have a director of technology who's really good working with the internet, Jacob Garcia. And so he can meet with Dr. Fowler about it. We can have an ASB section specifically.
And I can coordinate with you since we have the ping page. Maybe we can have, I don't know how we'll do it exactly, but
We can, yeah, I think that's a good idea. We can put it in both
I
places.
just don't know that there's all these things that.
Oh,
I
I get it, totally.
I
mean,
even
this
had
is
to
great
write it
feedback.
down.
This is
I
very
can't
good feedback.
remember it all, so I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget anything. There's a large amount of things happening this year. ASB is trying to do a lot, and we have a great support system from the students. Everyone's working really hard, and I really appreciate it. Yes.
When you say the ASB class, is that like the leadership elective?
The leadership elective, yes.
And then also, you said that behind some board is a calendar.
Oh yeah, right behind that door.
yes.
But that's where our ASB class is, in the class behind this wall.
Right.
And so we have
Okay, the next class.
yeah, and we have an event calendar where we make sure everyone else in the class is updated on what's happening and ideas that are going on. And so
Is that something that like all the students can come in and look at the board if they
Yeah.
want to know what's going on?
I've also been thinking of putting a weekly update thing on the TV downstairs. It's just I'd have to remember to put it in my planner or else I'd forget because there's a million and one things inside of my planner. And so with the website, moving forward with putting the website calendar, we should be able to make sure the students are more aware, and it would be out there a lot more for not just the parents but the students. And we also have the morning announcements. I've learned throughout my 3 years of ASB experience that word-to-mouth advertisement is the most efficient advertisement. However, the announcements for the students who do listen are very helpful, and that's where most of our advertisement gets through. And then we also make flyers. I love making flyers. They're my favorite. You might see the movie night flyer around. We have an open ASB meeting flyer.
I need one of those.
You need a flyer?
'Cause I ask my stepson all the time, do you have anything from school? Like things going on or anything? Because I know you're geared toward students, which is
Yes.
really great. And so they know what to do and what they want to do. But in order for me to get him there because you need the students there, I
Mhm.
need some help with that.
Yeah.
Okay, and we do kill a lot of trees with flyers.
Yeah.
Right.
So
I mean,
that's one of the
or
reasons I
even-
want to
even
start
like
the
a
Twitter
digital-
thing, because
Yeah,
that'd
the
be
Twitter-
something I could
And
update.
then ASB Instagram for students to look at, and then moving with the website is going to be such a huge step forward with advertisement. We just need to put together.
Let's have a discussion towards the end of the meeting, and I get it that people want to communicate, but let's have a discussion and like come up with a plan, so we're not doing that right while she's still speaking.
But yeah,
Thank you.
moving forward, I do genuinely believe that the calendar would be really helpful, and I'll write that down right once I sit back down so I won't forget. For Monday, we could maybe talk to Jacob, and then we could figure out when to schedule time with Dr. Fowler. He also has a million and one things to do, so we'll make sure to put it in his calendar.
I think if you put it, like she said, on Peach Jar and send it out that way. that
Peach
would
Jar?
make sense.
Oh,
Yeah.
class, every time?
What's it?
Class.
Peach Jar is a website that sends out flyers for the entire district.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
It's not inexpensive.
I'm fine with just emailing.
But let's have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
People can present ideas and then we can come to an
Okay.
agreement.
Are there any other questions, concerns? I love answering questions. I like making sure everyone's informed. I know it really sucks when you feel like you don't know what's going on. And so I really want to make sure everyone knows what's going on. I want everyone to make sure they feel a part of it, especially the ping system. You guys are always here to support us. And so I want to make sure you feel involved. Feeling involved is very important. Yeah.
So I'm secretary, I'm taking notes. Should I like email her this section so she could kind of check on it, or do you think you?
Sure.
You
Maybe
can.
I'll get.
I
Yeah.
could write my email down for you and on a sticky note.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, sounds good.
Great. Thank you, Madison,
You're
so
welcome.
much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. And that'll be on my agenda. We only have a few items really. It was her presentation, then Dr. Fowler's two things that he wanted to discuss, and I think you already went over the student support systems. That's coming as well.
Well, I'll talk about that in just a minute. So
Yeah.
It kind of is tied together, to
Okay.
be perfectly frank. And I think some of, I guess I'm just transitioning into this now.
Yeah.
And I think some of what I was thinking before has been a little bit altered by attending the Solution Tree conference that all the administrators in the district went to. Just made me think about things a little bit differently.
Can you say a little bit more, because I don't know that everyone knows
Okay.
about that. So who the administrators are? You don't have to name all of them, but kind of like the.
Well, basically just the principals from all the schools, the superintendent, the director of student support, the director of special ed, basically the district made a huge commitment to send everybody to the Solutions Tree conference in Long Beach a couple weeks ago. And really what Solution Tree is, it's about professional learning communities and it's about RTI, so response to intervention. And so we heard from some of the experts in those particular fields, and really it came down to just a couple of very, very key things that seem very, almost elementary, but it's sometimes harder to do. That in essence, schools operate best that collaborate a lot, that communicate well with each other and plan together. I mean, that's a big piece of how this whole thing works. And the other piece is creating the best data sources that we can so that we can quickly and easily get to the students that need help the most, instead of just waiting until the end of a progress report or a grading cycle and saying, okay, that kid has an F, now we need to support them, or just taking it as the teacher says, okay, this kid are ones that need to go to tutoring. This will give us some actual data that we can go to that's agreed upon across the whole school, and we can then target the kids that need the most help a lot quicker than we could otherwise. Instead of waiting until they're already failing, we're identifying them early. So that's part of what the presentation that we heard about kind of was about. A great conference, one of the better ones I've been to. A lot of good guest speakers, and we'll talk about a couple of those kind of as I go. But I just wanted to kind of give you the kind of real quick basics of what was said in the conference and why we need to do something a little bit different to go forward. Yes, ma'am.
Can you give me the acronym again? RTI, I heard the R and the I didn't hear the T.
Response to intervention.
Oh, to intervention. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
And professional learning communities is the other big one. Madison, you mind running my PowerPoint thing?
Sure.
Okay, so basically you start out with the questions. Are schools serving all students well? Are schools serving all students equally or with equity? Oh, you kicked it. I need to jiggle the wire for me, Madison. Apparently that's the problem I had. The wire needs to be jiggled.
That's problem solving.
Yeah.
There it goes.
There we go.
There
Okay.
we go.
And sorry. I never get phone calls, but when I do, they're always those guys that want to sell me something in Boca Raton or something. And are all students learning at high levels, which we can just take to be a successful independent adult, right? And I think realistically, when you start adding these big words like all, I don't know of really any school that's necessarily serving all their kids well. There's always those kids that sort of float through the cracks, those kids that have a lot of issues at home or whatever, and that's one of the reasons just nationwide we have a problem with dropouts. We have kids that don't graduate from high school and those kinds of things. And so really taking a look at that empirically and saying, what more can we do so that we make the personal commitment that we are going to serve all of our students, that we're going to make sure that we do things to assist everyone, regardless of their background, regardless of their disabilities, or regardless of their socioeconomic status. We're going to work hard as a school to make sure we're serving all those kids and getting them to graduation, basically guaranteeing learning for those kids. I mean, that's our goal. Go ahead and go to the next one. So basically they suggest, as I said before, professional educators should work together to think about how best to act on behalf of students, and we shouldn't have that good enough attitude, that we really need to go back to the well every time. So if we see that, hey, we put this thing into place and it seems to be working, but it maybe isn't working for this group of kids, we need to go back and problem solve. We need to go back and figure out why it's not working for those kids and make changes to make it work. And it needs to be a cycle. And so we're always doing things. So there's never an end to it. I mean, we'll never get to the place where we're going to be at 100%, or at least I don't know that we will. But we can't be content. We can't be content until every single kid is learning at high levels. And so it's that guarantee. And I think that's different than general philosophy of education. I think a lot of us sort of think, well, you know, we can't serve all the kids, we can't save everybody. But I think most teachers, most people in education didn't get into it with that attitude. We didn't start off thinking, well, we can't save everybody. We've kind of been beaten down by the system a little bit and got there. And this is really a chance to kind of go back and say, no, we really can serve everybody. Let's just figure it out. And just not make any excuses. So go on to the next one. And so really, is it worth the effort? Some statistics. So last year, the U.S., the total high school graduation rate rose to 84.1% last year. All significant subpopulations of students improved. That is a record, 84.1%. People were pretty proud of it. It was the cover of Newsweek. I mean, it was a big deal when that came out in July or August, whenever that came out. But 84.1% is not 100%. And that means that a whole bunch of kids didn't graduate, you know? So that's, yes, it's better than it was, but is it something to celebrate? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's a benchmark on the way, but it's certainly not where we want to be. The other thing to take into account is by 2020, which is just down the road, 65% of all jobs in the economy will require post-secondary education and training beyond high school. 65%. 35% of job openings are going to require a bachelor's degree. 30% are going to require an associate's degree or some kind of 2-year vocational training. In 2006, the ACT, they are the ones that do all that national testing. They examined a bunch of different vocations. So they examined construction workers, plumbers, electricians, upholsterers, kind of those skilled trades. And they looked at the reading and math skills that those folks have to do every day. And they said essentially it was equivalent to basically a freshman level in a major university. So unless you have a good, solid education, even those nice vocations are a little bit out of reach, you know. And basically kind of coming back to the big idea, fundamental purpose of school, ensure that all students are learning at high levels. And you can't do that by doing what you've always done before. You know, you have to look at things differently. Just historically speaking, and here's a quote from 1834, so it's been a minute, but when we set up high schools in this country, the National Education Association, this is a quote, "The main function of secondary schools is to prepare for the duties of life that a small proportion, a proportion small in number but very important to the welfare of the nation, who show themselves to be able to profit by an education prolonged to the 18th year and whose parents are able to support them while they remain so long at school." So when we set up the system, the idea was, you know, some kids will graduate from high school. And that's just not good enough anymore with the data that we just saw. We're not, even high school is not going to be good enough for most kids. And just to put that in perspective, throughout the 20th century, fewer than 20% of jobs required a high school diploma. Some of our parents, some of our grandparents, you know, they were able to find work in factories, find agricultural work. They were able to be successful. Those jobs don't exist anymore, or there's at least very, very few of them. So that's changed. Has it? I mean, that's sort of the question. I mean, I think schools tend to sort kids into tracks. These are the kids that are going to college. These are the kids that aren't. You know, these are the kids that are going to be successful. You know, let's give them various levels of math because these kids aren't going to need to function at that high level of math. I mean, that's not what we do here, but I think that is kind of the typical trend. And so really since 1835, if you will, how much has high schools typically changed? And the answer is not much. I mean, if you look at it, especially over the last 50 to 100 years, with the exception of projectors, you know, PowerPoints, you know, we're basically teaching the same way in traditional high schools, which is one of the reasons I think we're so great here, because I do think that the project-based learning piece is a very different way to learn. And I do think that that serves kids differently. But in general, we're still doing a lot of lecture. You know, we're still expecting the kids to sit there and look at us. You know, and I think that some of that has to really be looked at. We need to look at the things that are in place, the practices, the policies, the tradition, the things that are here only because this is how we've always done things, and really examine them and see if they're useful. And so that's part of what's going on here. Go ahead and go to the next one. So basically, the definition of doing the same thing and expecting different results. It's insanity. You know, there's Einstein. Big idea too is that school practices should be based on data, not tradition. This is a barometer of influence put together by a gentleman named John Haiti. He's an educational researcher that's looked at 50 years of educational studies from all over the world, and he basically does studies on studies, right? Go ahead and go to the next one. And he calls that visible teaching. And so basically he looks at basically a meta-analysis of all these different things, and he rates them based on their effect on student achievement, essentially. That's what he does. Go ahead and next. So if it's less than 0.3, it's a small effect. 0.3 to 0.6 is a medium effect. 0.6 is a large effect. And basically 0.4 is basically just considered a year of just a kid being alive. So if you just live an extra year, you're going to progress by a grade level in essence, right? In a typical teacher's classroom, in an average student's life, it's about a 0.4. So we want to look at things that affect student learning greater than just, hey, I just happen to be breathing this year. And I don't think that we always have done that. We've tried a bunch of different stuff and we haven't always had the best data. So go on to the next thing. So here are some of the big ones. Most of them have to do with just basically belief, if that makes sense. If a teacher believes that their students can achieve, that has a 1.62 effect size. That's more than 2 years of natural growth, right? The teachers work together, solve problems together. That has a 1.57 effect size. So again, more than 2 years. It's in essence more than almost three. The students' belief in themselves. Do they really have confidence that they can learn? Do they really feel like they're supported? Do they feel in their heart that given the right opportunities they can do things? That has a 1.33 size. So those are pretty huge. And then things like response to intervention has a 1.07. We'll talk about that a little bit. And then some simple things like teachers' clarity, being very clear about goals, being very clear about what the curriculum is, communicating that well to the students every single day. That has a 0.97. And then formative evaluations that are frequent, that it's not just you have a test every once a month. You know, there are little quizzes here and there that sort of show benchmarks as you go, and that happens frequently. It has a 0.9, and then just telling kids, hey, you know, this is how you're doing this week. This is great. I've seen you doing this extra work today. That has a 0.73. So a lot of it has to do with belief, working together, and communication. You know, those are big things, and those things seems kind of self-evident to some degree, but it's not really how schools operate. You know, I mean, really getting back to that kind of attitude that, you know, we can't serve everybody. Well, if you believe that, you're already down. You know, so getting back to that and really making sure that it does work. Working together. Teachers have a tendency traditionally, and I think we all have this in our mind about what teacher work looks like. They're up here, they close their door, and they're working all by themselves in isolation. This is how I teach history. This is how I teach math. And really, to be effective, we need to figure out how we best teach together. And when we do operate independently, we're using some common strategies. We're using some common vocabulary. We're doing things similarly for the same purpose. And communicating those goals, communicating the instructions clearly, every single day to every single kid, and finding ways to then really assess them, and then going back, and if they're not learning it, we're going back and we're helping them relearn it immediately, not waiting until they've already failed. And so that's kind of what RTI is all about, which give you that. So teachers can and do make a difference. students can, if you believe they can, and if the school works together to solve individual learning problems, then they definitely can. Therefore, we need to be more collaborative. This school has a great foot up on that. We've been collaborative from the very get-go, and taking collective responsibility for all our kids. These are not my kids just because they're in my class, and those kids are not my kids because they're not in my class. We collectively have responsibility for everybody. Have to use data, and we need to provide an essential, guaranteed, and viable curriculum that will prepare all students to be successful as an adult. That's kind of the goal. I think there's maybe one more. Flip through this. Keep going. Nobody cares. Keep going. So coming back, reflective leadership is a big piece. So I've already started kind of work on a leadership coalition. I've invited a bunch of teachers that have been here for a while, that are kind of have a lot of influence, and to start looking at some of these things and really getting to the bottom of those. Once we're a little more established, we'll probably invite a couple of parents, a couple of students to join us. So that'll be important. And then, is there one more, Madison? No. So does anybody have any questions kind of about that? Yeah, yes, ma'am.
So did that only focus on secondary?
No.
So the conference
The
also
conference talks about
primary.
everything, and all the grades. In fact, there was a speaker there who taught primarily preschool programs, and the way that she had sort of framed it was a little different, because the kinds of things that you have to do for kids at different levels is a little different. But the ideas of collaboration, the ideas of frequent assessments, the ideas of feedback, the ideas of teachers working together, the ideas of getting the kids to believe in themselves, those things run the gamut from a TK all the way through college. Those things work all the way through.
So was there any discussion of how that would look within the district? Like what?
I think that's coming. I think that we've seen at the conference some schools that have gone through this process and have changed the way they've done things. We saw some examples of those, but their kids, their communities are not our kids, our communities. And so the way it will look in Bonsall will be a little different, and it will be determined by the students that we have, the parents that we serve, the staff that we have. Ours will look a little different, but I think that that's something that will probably unfold over the next several years. Because obviously this isn't a change you can make tomorrow. It's going to take some work on everybody's part. It's going to really be challenging some people to really go back and look at the things that they've done for years and say, is that really effective, or do I just do that because it's a habit, or it's just the way I've always done things? And that's hard. If anybody's ever given up a habit, we know how hard that is. And that's true of anything. Yes, ma'am.
So it was just the administrators, right, the key principals, etc.
At this point, it was just the administrators, but
you guys debriefed together.
We have. And the next part of the plan is that we're bringing it back to our staff. We're beginning kind of the beginning work, kind of talking to people about
Was there
it, doing all that kind of
general
stuff.
buy-in, or was this put upon you folks?
No, I think there was general buy-in. I think this was something that everybody was supportive of, and I think that at least at this site, the teachers certainly understand the need for a lot of this stuff. I think that it was.
I think some of it's very no-brainer, as you were saying
right.
in your words, but no-brainer in that obviously the teacher is a paramount person, the role, their
Absolutely.
attitude, their approach to teaching, their willingness to accept feedback from others,
Right.
their willingness to get feedback even from their own students. It really comes down to that communication piece. I don't think there's anything shocking in here.
Mhm.
It's whether the district can put the time in, because it's going to take time.
Absolutely.
Like you said, over 2 years, but just the time itself to collaborate.
Absolutely, I agree
Right?
with that.
Because collaboration
I agree with
takes
that.
longer. That's much harder than standing in front of a classroom and just speaking to a class.
I agree with you. That's all true, and I think our superintendent is very aware of that, and he's looking at ways to find more collaboration time in general. But and I'm looking at ways to free teachers up, during their contractual day. I mean, I'm not in the business of asking anybody to give up family time. I mean, I don't want to do that. But finding ways to free up certain people, and maybe sometimes it's just I need to go cover a math class so that math teacher can go be part of this particular group and can do some collaboration on certain days, or we need to get in a roving sub to free up some people. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to structure it, and I think some of them are very outside the box. Some of them are things we can do relatively simply, and those outside the box things, they're down the road a little bit. They'll be after we do a little more reflection, figure out how that's going to work. It'll be supported by the teachers. And then ultimately the teachers themselves, or at least a lot of them, will get an opportunity to go to the same conference or a similar conference to basically get some of that same information that administration has got. So it is going to be a process. It's going to be something that's probably going to be in place for a while. And like I said, it's cyclical. It's something that doesn't end. So the hope is that we get started, and yes, it'll be a slow start, and then we'll start rolling, and then 15, 25 years from now, they're still essentially doing the same process, but at that point, the level of success is substantially higher. That's the hope.
And along the way, are you folks gonna, just something to keep in mind, which you may already be on top of, but doing some sort of data gathering along the way as you progress to see if it is having any slight impact. To maintain something that's a change over multiple years, you have to be showing regular
Absolutely, and
update and progress to both the stakeholders in it and the stakeholders outside.
And that's one of the key components of, if you want, it's
I think it's very.
it's one of the slides back.
Yeah.
That data analysis is a huge component of that, and having data that's worth analyzing. That's another piece of it, because sometimes there's so much data being thrown at us. It's hard to figure out what we need to really be looking at, and so finding some things and designing those things together as part of that guaranteed curriculum, so we can see if these changes have really made a difference. And you're absolutely right. That's going to be key. And unless we have those, this is all going to fall apart, because we can all talk about best practices all day, but until we actually see, the actual successes, and we can show it with higher, success rates, whatever that looks like. People are gonna have problems with it.
They're gonna forget about it or not
Right.
do it as
Right.
strongly as they did.
Absolutely.
But that's just part of any change management.
Absolutely. Okay.
So who's involved in the leadership coalition?
So I've had a grand total of one meeting at this point. so Danny Costa is there, Ms. Rojas is there, Eddie Van Huser's there.
Now, who are those folks?
Those are all our teachers here.
Teachers, okay.
Teachers, there are our more seasoned teachers, kind of our founding teachers.
Okay.
The teachers that tend to have a little more influence maybe over the rest of the staff than others, or have more outside the box sort of thinking, abilities, the folks that, look at things a little differently, because really it's not about me, and I need to be challenged. I mean, I have ideas, I have great ideas, but some of my ideas are stupid.
I relate.
And sometimes people need to be like, hey, yeah, that's not gonna work, and here's why.
And they have emotional, what I can say from those teachers knowing them is they also have emotional connection with the
Right,
kids.
absolutely.
Not just an intellectual connection, but an
Right.
emotional, human connection. And I think that's really
Well,
important here
and I
as
think
well.
we're very lucky here at Bonsall High School. My teachers care about the kids, and so that's a great place to start. But just, we all love our kids. That's not going to get them all graduated. That's not going to pay their bills when they're 25 years old. We need to really look at it and do more with that love, if you will, to help improve the quality of the education that they're getting, and help improve the individual kids' learning every day. I mean, that's really should be our goal. And you're right, that's hard.
So, but, I'm sorry. What's the point of the coalition meeting then? Do they gather information and then take it to the board, or take it to
Well,
the
the-
superintendent?
the-
What's the point of?
Well, and the Leadership Coalition is really the group that looks at those policies, those practices, those things that we've done traditionally, and really hold them up to the light. So yes, they would be the ones that look at the data, and that group would then share it with the rest of the staff and start the conversations going in smaller groups, and maybe department groups, for instance. Like, this is some things we need to change in math, for instance. This is some policies we have in place that we want to see if it's working or not. let's get the data on that, let's see what we're doing. And really just kind of going back and spending time, really analyzing that data and really putting some alternatives in place and trying different things. So that's kind of the purpose of those groups. At some point,
they essentially became advocates and thought leaders, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And like I said, I mean, it takes a village, and every person comes with a different piece of the puzzle. Every person that's on that team has different skills, has different abilities, and once we bring all those things together and mesh it into some kind of super being, which is a good team, we're able to do more than we are individually. That's why the Avengers work. Captain America can't fight off every supervillain. Sometimes you got to bring in Iron Man and the Hulk. It's just the way of things.
Yeah.
So you like my nerd answer there?
I love it.
I thought it was really funny because in his office he has a bunch of superhero figurines in his window if you want to go upstairs and look at it. So
and they get rotated out from time to time for different holidays, so it's fun.
just talk
Okay, so thank you guys for that. And obviously, if you have any individual questions, you want to just come see me and talk one-on-one, I'm happy to do that as well.
I want to say something as the parent group leader. This is something I'm really excited about this. I didn't know what you were going to be covering, but I've been wanting to. I shared a book with Jen about the future of work, the future of technology, kind of like how fast it's changing and what that means for our kids. So this is totally in step with that because it's not just like, okay, let's change the approach. It's ongoingly changing it, like evolution. I mean, the evolution's still happening. We kind of sometimes think, okay, we got to this point. We just, it's that constant reinvention and looking at the data and tweaking things. So I'm really happy to hear about this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I recently wrote a paper about, media and how it affects people, but my professor involved technology, and I found a lot of sources on how beneficial technology is in the classroom. And I think what Bonsall High School specifically is doing is very important. And I hope this continues to happen. And I hope everything that the teachers are doing goes on for future generations and helps the students continue moving forward. And I hope that I myself make some sort of impact because I think this is actually a very, very beautiful idea and just concept that we can build off of.
Yeah.
Well said.
Thank you. I love Bonsall High School. It's my favorite.
What's your favorite?
It is.
Thank
I have to go to class.
Thank you.